Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, AmTrust Title Insurance Company, Perfect Building Maintenance, M&T Bank, Customers Bank, Marks Paneth LLP, Capital One Bank, Collins Building Services, Meridian Capital Group. Additional support has been provided by grants from AKA Hotel Residences Corman Communities, Ariel Property Advisors, Amerant Bank, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Briarwood Organization, Chase Commercial Mortgage Lending, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Citizens Bank, Dime Community Bank, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties LLC, Handler Real Estate Organization, Hodges Ward Elliott INC, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Casamatides Red Apple Group, Keysight Capital Partners, Matone Group, New Banks, Newmark Knight Frank, Ocean First Bank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rockefeller Group, Rosewood Realty Services, Stonehenge NYC, SVN CPEX Real Estate Services, Tierra CRG, the Marengo Family Foundation, and these friends. Hello, my name is Michael Stoller. I'm here for the AmTrust Title webinar series. I'm the host of the Stoller Report, and today's webinar's topic, Senior and Senior Housing, Resilience in the Face of Adversity. My guests, they include from Boston, Matthew Whitlock, Managing Director, Chief Investment Officer, Senior Housing at Berkshire Senior Housing. From Chicago, Guy Geller, Chief Operating Officer, CPF Living, President of Grace Management. From Denver, Adam Kaplan, CEO and founder of Solera Senior Partner. And basically from New York, who's operating out of Florida right now, Jan Berman, President of Engel Berman Group and partner at the Bristol Assisted Living. According to the statistics, there are approximately 47 million seniors living in America. Why do you guys like senior housing? Matt, you recently went to Berkshire. Tell me a little bit about Berkshire and what you're doing there, what else each one of you is doing.
Yes, thank you, Michael. So my career has been full circle, where I started originally in the 1990s in acquisitions and through the public offering of Brookdale, the original Brookdale Living Communities. I then had a short stint as a dedicated lender in the Fannie Mae Freddie Mac world, and then became a broker at CBRE. I have come full circle to get back onto the acquisition side, doing no small part to my feelings about the industry, about the future of the industry, and about the opportunities to invest in the industry. I think you touched on the demographics being really an unbelievably strong argument. I think what I would also add on to that, Michael, is even in the face of this pandemic, our business model is proving out. We are able, as an industry, to really offer a better level of care to very complex healthcare profiles of today's seniors. And I think that in and of itself is a very, very compelling reason, and one of the highest reasons on why I'm bullish on the industry.
Now, has Berkshire gone into the senior housing business before you joined them last year?
Yes. So in 2019, we completed our first equity raise in a dedicated seniors housing fund. It's approximately $235 million. Of which approximately 25% has been deployed. Our fund is concentrating on both ground up development and acquisitions. And our business plan with respect to that fund is predicated upon best-in-class operator partnerships. We would like to say we have a full exclusivity with our operating partners, but most of our operating partners have many equity investors and partners. And so what we like to do is concentrate our efforts with our operating partners in specific geographic regions. other funds within Berkshire have debt and equity capacities as well. So we are able to invest in seniors housing throughout the capital stack, in addition to our dedicated seniors housing fund.
Guy, you're with a private equity firm. Tell me about CPF and Grace Management.
Yeah, CPF Living was launched about 5 to 6 years ago with our first fund. We raised about 221 million of equity. We finished deploying that in last summer, and subsequently raised our second fund of another 225 million of equity. What probably differentiates CPF Living from other private equity funds focused in the senior living space is one of the first acquisitions that we made was a company called Grace Management, which was a long-term industry assisted living management company only, effectively zero kind of equity in the real estate side. The family that launched it wanted to retire, so we bought the company from them. And as a result, we have a kind of a dedicated owner-operator platform in the private equity space, which is a little bit unique and gives us an opportunity to acquire communities and around the country and apply our value-add operations to them along the way.
Adam, you started Solera in 2016. Tell me a little bit about Solera.
So I've been exclusively in senior living my whole career. After a time on both the capital side and operations, I launched my company 4 years ago. We're a fully integrated platform. So we lead with operations. We have management capabilities, development capabilities, as well as investment in assets. We've closed on 9 projects to date. It's included value add acquisitions, which we've done 1, 2 third-party management deals, and the rest have been our development strategy, which we have 6, 4 under construction today, 1 which will open in August. And what I like about the industry is that it's still very young. It's in its infancy, and so what's exciting is that the people that are participating here today are going to be shaping the future. And we've seen it evolve in the last few years. I think we're going to continue to see tremendous innovation in the space in the next coming year. So it's exciting to be a small part of that.
Jan, you've been involved with real estate for close to 40 years. Let's talk about the Bristol and Engel Berman.
I actually started, as you know, as an industrial guy, and I used to buy corporate surplus properties and chop them up like sausages. And then in February of 1997, we were the largest owners of industrial properties on Long Island. We sold our portfolio to First Industrial and took OP units. And I had a non-compete for industrial buildings on Long Island. So I started buying properties in Montreal and Miami and Bedford, Massachusetts. And locally, I teamed up with Sidney Engel, which is where Engel Berman came from, and Steve Krieger, to buy a piece of land in East Meadow. I just finished a 438 unit, 55 and older community, my first housing job, but it was zoned for an office building at the time, and office buildings weren't really in favor. So I had never done anything like this before, but 55 and older housing, it was very successful. So we bought this land together, and we built a 280 bed SNF. We were the landlord for a tenant. We built 100 units of condominiums, and we had extra land, and I had the idea of doing assisted living. So then I got on a plane and flew around the country, and we saw a model that Marriott was doing in Maryland. We copied it, filled the building up in 4 months, and built 1 a year for 5 years. And then out of the blue, got an unsolicited offer to sell the original 5 for about $250 million, which was a lot more than we thought it was worth. So we went out to 8 potential buyers, and we sold the package for about $325 million to a joint venture of Chartwell Senior Housing and an ING fund. And we kept the management. We had a non-compete for Long Island. So we had a bit of a buyer's remorse. We were doing a lot of housing jobs back then, and we were selling a lot of sites to Pulte. But we went ahead and we started building in New Jersey and Westchester, because we couldn't build on Long Island for 4 years. And after 5 years, they wanted to sell. So we bought the original 5 places back. And we now have 21 operating properties and a half a dozen that we're constructing: Long Island, New Jersey, Westchester, and New York City. And we feel that we pretty much are done with this area, with the exception of a few more in New York City, and now we're looking in South Florida. So we really are cradle to grave. We find the property, we zone the property. We have our own construction business with about 90 people. We do about $1 billion a year of construction between multifamily and Bristol's and other things that we're doing. Wellbridge, the addiction business. We're going into some other businesses. We have our own management company with about 60 people that do all the management of the assisted living. We have a separate management company for other properties. And we're currently in contract for 4 sites in Southeast Florida, and that'll probably be our next main area of expansion. We're also building about 1,000 units of rental housing on Long Island right now for 55 and older communities. So we're doing a lot of multifamily rentals now too.
You know, there are different levels of the stack, as one would say. There's independent living, assisted living, memory care, specialized care. What do you think are the best opportunities in the future, in 2020, in the next 10 years, with the aging population? As I say, the silver Tunisia.
You got to say all the above. You know, a lot of it's need driven. So the assisted living and the memory care, they come kicking and screaming, but they have to come. And a lot of people want to know where they're going to be, so they move in a bit younger. But, you know, with the number of people that are aging out, we all have amazing opportunities across the spectrum.
Adam and then Guy, where do you see the opportunities?
The only thing I would add would be it depends. And the reason why I say that, it's a very local business. You know, really you got to analyze this on a 5-10 mile radius. And, you know, in one market, it could be really compelling to weight heavily towards independent living. On another, it could be more compelling to offer all 3 levels of services: independent, assisted, and memory care. And in another market, you might find, you know, the independent living is oversaturated, and you know, the assisted living and memory care is a more compelling you know, opportunity. So we look at everything on a localized basis. There's a lot of great reporting out there right now with Nick Map and some of the other benchmarking tools, Vision LTC, that have come out. And so you could be a lot more of a sharpshooter today than you could in the past. So look at it on a localized basis and figure out where the most compelling opportunities lie.
Jane and Adam, so will Matt, are building ground up. Guy, you've been buying existing property. Why have you been buying existing properties?
Well, so I believe everything that Jan and Adam said is absolutely true, especially in the near term. With the existing products that are available on the marketplace, you can find opportunities based on demand and supply that are currently being met, as well as, you know, from a pure cost perspective, to answer your question, we find that it can still be very compelling to buy at a discounted per unit price of an existing asset, and to spend a significant amount of money refurbishing and repurposing that community to be more suitable for today's marketplace, and still come in under per unit values of what a new construction would take as well. So, and it's a faster way to market for us at that time. So for instance, in the case of an independent living community, we find that a lot of times there's an opportunity to convert units to a higher level of care based on kind of the needs in the market that are or are not being met. In the case of a couple communities where we've had additional land, we've built bolt-on memory care or assisted living buildings to existing independent living buildings, so we provide a more of a continuum of opportunity of care for those seniors. But to get to your original question, I think, you know, right now we are definitely seeing the need-driven market, especially with this COVID-19 situation happening right now, where assisted living and memory care is still being driven forward because of need. As we get into the next kind of wave of demographics of kind of the more baby boomer astute buyer, I do believe that independent living is going to have to evolve its product and innovate to become more appealing to that group, so that it isn't starting to mimic just another form of assisted living in a slightly different environment. And that's something that's exciting, and I think it will come. And I think there's great people doing really interesting projects right now that will become a lot different. It'll look and feel very different than what the products that you see today.
I know Adam has been speaking around the country about the topics of urban assisted living, independent living, memory care. What do you see different over the next couple of years for all of you? You know, there was at the beginning of the 21st century, you know, we had a circumstance where people were saying that there was an assisted living type of with the Outry and Sunrise. Where do you see the business today evolving? What are the changes that you see for assisted living, independent living, memory care going for the next 10, 15 years?
So I would take a shot at that. I think everything that the other panelists have said is entirely accurate. And what I would also add on that is there's the old line from the movie, "If you build it, they will come," and that's entirely untrue in seniors housing. This is an evolution and to Adam's point earlier, we're at the very beginning of the evolution of this. And what we're facing in terms of who our retail prospect or our retail consumer is we're now bumping up against a post-World War II resident as opposed to a pre-World War II resident. And that's incredibly important, not only from an architectural perspective, but an acuity level, a programming level, and healthcare profile level. So for example, my father was born in 1919. When he moved into assisted living a few years ago, he was concerned with having 3 warm meals and a warm cot. And my mother is 16 years younger than my father, and she wanted a heck of a lot more than Dad did. She wasn't concerned with a cot or the warm meals. She wanted activities and not just bingo. She wanted to be able to interact with the other residents in the community. She wanted to travel to museums, to restaurants. And so I think the process of evolution is well underway, but we need to evolve as an industry, not just from an architecture perspective, but from a programming perspective and the types of care that we offer so that we're best able to satisfy the needs of our consumer. And those needs are changing daily.
So I have a question. If you have 2 different age groups as a husband and wife, how do you put them in a room and how do you change your programs? And Guy, you're in the management business. Adam, you're in the management business. And Jan, how do you deal with the changing of the age? And hypothetically, one of the people may be in memory care and one is just in assisted living.
Yeah, so that goes back to a different question that you asked as well, which is kind of the evolution of the product. And I think it comes down to choice and optionality. And, you know, the traditional senior living community has a singular dining room where that's where you eat effectively 3 meals a day, 365 days a year. I see the evolution kind of mimicking a little bit more of the hospitality industry with a lot more options in terms of dining, you know, where you can eat multiple different venues at different days, a lot of different activities and different grades of activities, from everything from those that require some assistance and some potential care to support to effectively just a normal, you know, kind of program of opportunities to get outside and do different things. So I think it's a combination of both creating a physical plant that's got different areas and different means of providing different venues and programming that suits it. But I will say this is that in the future, we've got to blend this world of hospitality services and healthcare in a more kind of meaningful way where the healthcare sits behind and runs almost like a machine consistently. And the hospitality is what we're really offering to the clientele as a reason to come to us.
But Michael, from our point of view, we're seeing people coming in older and more frail. We're becoming a wealthy person's nursing home. To a large extent, that's what assisted memory care is becoming. You know, you don't get younger people here. And if you have the mix of one in memory care and one not, you're almost better off because it's 2 separate programs completely. But we're preparing for people to stay longer, and the way we keep them longer is by offering more and more services that you see more in a nursing home. You know, different types of lifts and different types of food options where if they can't eat solid foods, and, you know, advanced licenses where we can keep people longer. Because the key for us is, you know, we lose 2.5% of our population every month. So the key to us is to keep them as long as possible. So you want to give them the ability to stay once they're there. Because if instead of turning every 3 years, it's every 2 years, that's pretty kind of horrible as far as the constant in and out.
You know, assisted living 2020, you know, has a relationship now with medical institutions. Adam, you're planning one of your institutions dealing with a healthcare institution, I think Cleveland Clinic you mentioned. Jan, you're involved with Northwell Health. Why don't we talk about what you're doing with the healthcare systems today? Jan?
Well, what we did with Northwell was when we built the Lake Success property, it's literally a 1/4 mile from the Feinstein Institute and Northwell's main campus. and they had a world-renowned researcher in dementia there named Dr. Peter Davies. So we put together a suite of offices and examination areas for them. And it was the first time they had ever done research with an existing community of people. So they do research several days a week with our population, and they're working on all kinds of things from weightlifting to nutrition to ballroom dancing. And it's amazing to watch a 90-pound woman deadlifting 90 pounds, you know, and they're trying novel approaches to try to slow down the onset of dementia. And they've come up with some interesting things.
Yeah, there's different ways we're approaching this. What I would say is that historically in the industry, the hospitals, they want to keep you out of their doors. I think now the progressive ones are a lot smarter. They see that senior living is a part of the continuum. They want to improve outcomes. There's a move away from value-based towards value-based care. And so if you can provide high quality care in a lower cost setting, you're going to be successful in this next movement in healthcare. So we're, even in buildings where we don't have formal relationships, we're trying to work with local healthcare systems. We're seeing a lot more success with that, and trying to provide greater care coordination services so that we're not just discharging somebody out to the hospital like we used to. We're trying to triage that situation, work with preferred providers, provide the highest quality care, lower cost settings, therefore improving outcomes. So there are informal relationships, which I'm a big believer in, which we're doing, you know, in all of our markets. And then there's the more formal relationships like we're doing in Las Vegas, where we're actually getting counsel from experts that's rooted in research. And it really helps guide, especially like with dementia care, more research-driven design decisions. Versus operators, we tend to base our decision off of, you know, efficiencies, off of marketability. So it's kind of a really good marriage between the operator mindset and then more of the academic institutions.
But let's discuss the dementia, the Alzheimer's, and the memory care. Jane, you said you're building a place in New York City today, which is specifically geared to memory care. Adam, I believe the place in Las Vegas is all memory care. Why are you pushing so much on the memory care? And what's the difference in the cost per month for a customer who's in a memory care versus a regular assisted living?
We did the New York Avenue as a memory care because we couldn't fit a full Bristol. So it really had to do with the size of the property and the yield we could get on the property. So the demand showed that we could fill the beds with just memory care, and it would have been not enough of any category to suit our needs. We would love to do a full Bristol like we're doing on the west side, and we'll find sites for that. So we will do more in the city. But you definitely get more money, but you definitely provide more care. So, you know, the staffing ratio is completely different. The level of services you provide are different, and you're compensated for it. But the other side of that is everything is included, where typically in assisted living, we get levels of care and we get paid for extra items. So that can build up too when people get more frail and elderly. So it's more of an all-inclusive package at a set price.
Our preference is to build continuums. So if you look at our overall development portfolio, we have 6 assets, 5 of which are either assisted living and memory care or independent living, assisted living and memory care. And those weight heavily towards either independent living or assisted living and independent living. We have one project which is unique, which is standalone memory care, and it's due to the partnership with the local healthcare system. And the adjacency to a brain research foundation, brain research center. So there are unique circumstances I mentioned earlier that are very local that could drive an alternative strategy. But you got to be very careful on standalone memory care. I'll tell you what, on paper, it might look attractive when you're getting, you know, $6,500 a month all-inclusive rents, but it can prove to be more challenging. And so typically our preference is to weight towards a continuum where the independent and assisted do feed the memory care.
I do think actually Adam touched upon something that's really important in terms of, you know, why standalone memory care versus the other products. I personally own a business with my father in central London where we do standalone memory care. And the reason why we do that is kind of twofold. One, we certainly saw a massively underserved market there, significantly underserved market. But the second piece is that sometimes with the assisted living, Jan's right, it's heading but much more down to looking like a nursing environment than it would be 20 years ago. That providing that level of clinical care can be challenging and expensive as well, but it can be done, something that can be done at home with home care, versus the challenge behaviors that you see in memory care make it more challenging for anybody to stay at home or live with family members or anything else like that. So an environment where it's specifically suited to deal with memory care issues tends to create a significantly more positive outcomes for those residents. So, I feel like there's long-term value in memory care as a product, but to Adam's point, see a lot more benefit in having a continuum. And in fact, in a lot of cases, because independent living has somewhat geared itself towards assisted living these days, we're almost skipping the assisted living component of that continuum. So we have a community with 230 apartments of independent living, and we did not build an assisted living. We built a 30-unit memory care adjacent to it. And so all we have is independent living and memory care, and that continuum works quite well for us. I don't know if that would work in all circumstances. I think everything is unique to what the market is offering, but we've found that there can be a benefit to that too.
Our conversation will have to end, and I hope that you will join us next week for the continuation of the show on seniors and senior housing. This is Michael Stoller.